Oh, everyone standing ready. Praise Yahweh, brethren. It's an honor and a pleasure to present our first cook for the spiritual food this morning, the great Deacon David Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom. Please be seated. Okay, we have a lot to go through here today. So please listen with a believing heart, and may Yahweh's face shine upon you. The title of this sermon is Face to Face with Yahweh. And our job in being face to face with Yahweh is revealing these great secrets of Yahweh to the world. Yahweh is very anxious right now, and He has been for about 6,000 years. And Yahweh, He's not going to cut His plan short. He practices self-control, no matter how anxious He is. He practices the peaceful solution. The peaceful solution. The peaceful solution. That is what He practices. We are revealing these secrets to the world right now. And if you'll turn with me to Revelations 10:7 on page 977. Revelations 10:7 on page 977. But in the days of the voice of the seventh Malach, when he will begin to sound, the great secret of Yahweh would be finished, as he declared to his servants the prophets. Now, Yisrayl Hawkins has been blowing this trumpet, and he's been revealing these secrets to us for at least 40 years plus now. And if you'll turn to Colossians 1:26 on page 925, page 925, Colossians 1:26. See, this is a secret that's been hidden from everybody for all this time, and it's coming out now. The truth is coming out now. Colossians 1:26, the great secret which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to His saints, to whom Yahweh willed to make known what are the riches of the glory of this great secret among the Gentiles, which is the Messiah in you, the hope of glory. Please turn to Ephesians 1:9 on page 916, just a few pages over. Ephesians 1:9. In Ephesians 1:9 it says, and to make all men plainly see how this secret is administered, which has been hidden in Yahweh from the beginning of the ages, who created all things. For this purpose, that it might now be made known to the principalities and powers in the heavens, coming through the called out ones, the manifold wisdom of Yahweh. And that's in unity. All according to the plan of the ages which He carried into effect in anointing Yeshua, our high priest. And so today, I'm bringing nothing new to you, but that which has been taught from when the seventh Malach began to sound. So let's review just a few things. You know, the only way that we can do this job is to take on the image of Yahweh, take on the character of Yahweh. His character, as in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, because we know Yahweh practices this Himself. It's come down to us through the ages. If you'll turn to 2 Kepha on page 961, this is just a quick reminder. 2 Kepha on page 961. And that's verse 4 through 12. Through which exceedingly great and precious promises have been given to us by Him, in order that through these you may be partakers of that holy nature and escape the corruption of the world, which is through lust. And also for this very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance perseverance, to perseverance holiness, and to holiness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. For if these things are in you and abound, they cause you to be neither barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our King, Yahshua Messiah. In verse 10, it says, Therefore, my brothers, be all the more diligent to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you will never fall, if you become like Yahweh. And in this way, an entrance into the everlasting kingdom of our King and Savior, Yahshua Messiah, will be abundantly supplied to you. So we are being made in the likeness of Yahweh at this time. And Daniel 24 actually talks about finishing the transgression and making an end to sin. And this is the way that we must do it. We must come to the perfection of Yahshua, that same perfection. For this end of sin to take place, that's what we must do. And in chapter 12 of the 9th book of Yisrayl, part 2, I have a quote from him. Pastor said, All I need to do is to teach and show you the atonement that you have to be like in order to do this. In Genesis 1:26, Yahweh said, I will make, well, there's that word make, of course, making atonement through his laws. I will make man in my image, according to my likeness. We must be on guard at all times to continue being made in this way. Time is short. We must keep Yahweh's appointments, the Sabbaths, and feast days, because this is where we learn what the image of Yahweh is, how to have Yahweh's face shining upon us. And this is also the protection from the things to come. If you're not here keeping Yahweh's appointments, you're not going to have Yahweh's protection upon you, nor will you have Yahweh's blessings in any manner. So these things are coming upon those who dwell upon the earth. Now let's turn to page 808 real quick. Page 808, and that's Luke 21. Luke 21, 34 through 36. So be on your guard. See to it that everyone's minds are never clouded with carousing, drunkenness, or anxieties and worries of this life, so that the day will not come upon you unexpectedly. For it will come like a trap on all those who dwell upon the face of the earth. The ones that dwell upon the face of the earth, dwelling upon these things. Because of this, watch and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Yes, we're told to watch. Remember, we're watching now. We're looking up. We're looking up at the clouds. We're looking for the signs from heaven that are coming to us and that are being explained to us. If we're dwelling upon Yahweh, if we're dwelling upon His house, if we dwell in His house, if our heart dwells here, we'll be looking for these things. Psalms 91. Let's see. Psalms 91 on page 470. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And if you go ahead and read all of that, not right now, but you can read it later, we find out about Yahweh's protection there. So we want to watch these world events and see the prophecies being fulfilled in front of our very eyes, just like Isaiah 24 says. Well, these promises that Yahweh is giving us is if we stay in contact with Yahweh by being obedient. Isaiah 59:2 says that your own iniquities have separated you from the Father, from your head, from the house of Yahweh. So, speaking of divorce, do you remember when Lot got divorced? Genesis 19:26 on page 14. Genesis 19:26 on page 14. In Genesis 19, verse 26, it says, But his wife went after the gods that they had left behind, and she became a servant of sin. You see, Lot was a righteous man. Lot kept the laws. He kept the feast days, the appointments with Yahweh. He had Yahweh's image upon him. And you see, it says it right there. That's where she got divorced. Do you see it? Okay, well, let's look a little further. So Lot's wife was one of those dwelling upon the things of the earth, of the world, and she should have been dwelling upon Yahweh. When we get our mind upon this foolishness, when we forget the work, when we stand, if we don't stand in the work, instead of keeping our mind on the work, when we let it take over our lives, we are no longer dwelling in Yahweh's house. Hebrews 12:14 on page 951. Hebrews 12:14 on page 951. Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which none will see Yahweh. And on page 1, talking about this divorce again, on page 1 in the betrothal and marriage book, it says, before the actual marriage vows are made, counseling for betrothal, that is the period of time given for each individual to prove himself or herself ready for marriage. So the counseling for betrothal and marriage itself will assist both individuals in determining whether their desire is truly towards maintaining all 613 laws of Yahweh in every aspect of their life. On the next page, it says, things done by the wife must be in agreement with her husband, having his consent, in order to have peace and harmony in the family. And that's Ephesians 5:21 and 22. And on page 3, here's a statement that's very, very important. Marriage is a vow stating that you will love and serve each other by upholding all of Yahweh's laws. A marriage within Yahweh's house must be based upon upholding all of Yahweh's laws, and divorce is not an option. And also the husband must also be submissive to his head, as in Ephesians 5:25. Well, this is the pattern of the kingdom. Obedience, submissiveness without, you won't see Yahweh without it. You won't be in the kingdom. Just like Romans 13:1 through 2 says. Let's just go there real quick. Page 883. 883. Romans 13:1 through 2. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Yahweh, and the authorities that exist are ordained by Yahweh. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of Yahweh, and those who resist will receive damnation to themselves. And the vow that a man makes to a woman in Hosea 2:19 and 20, he says that he will betroth you to him, I will betroth you to me forever. Forever. That's a forever vow. It's a conditional vow, though, in that you must keep the laws, statutes, and judgments, both members. Just like Lot's wife, she did not keep the conditions, did not keep the vows. She divorced herself from Lot, committing spiritual adultery and going after the gods. Divorce happens automatically by default when one or both will not submit to the authority that Yahweh has placed over them. When a husband or wife turns from Yahweh, they're unbelievers, they're disobedient, and the believer is no longer bound. In Romans 1:29 through 31, it talks about covenant breakers, unmerciful, turning against Yahweh. But you know, it was not like this from the beginning. In fact, in Matthew 19, 3 through 8, if you can turn there, Matthew 19, 3 through 8, on page 746. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading it here. The Pharisees came to Yeshua and tested him, saying, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason? He answered and said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and will be united to his wife, and they, according to the law, shall be one flesh. So are they not, according to the law, therefore one flesh? Therefore what Yahweh has joined together, let no man put apart. They said to him, why did Moshe then command a man to give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? And he said to them, Moshe, because of the hardness of their hearts, allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, this was not so. So Moshe didn't permit divorce. What he did was he allowed divorce. He allowed divorce to take place just like death takes place. In fact, if someone is dead, you don't have to go to a courthouse or a lawyer or somebody and get a certificate stating that they're dead. You know they're dead, right? Well, just like death, when one or more of the two people stop keeping Yahweh's laws, you are divorced. Vows bring divorce or marriage, not certificates. The vows are what count. So if you break the vows, or if someone breaks their vows, if they turn from Yahweh, they're divorced already, and they did it, not anyone else. They chose it upon themselves. You know, in the time of Yeshua, churches were set up all around the place, and they had already become confused and were defiled. And that's why these guys were coming and testing, these Catholics, they were coming and testing Yeshua, trying to trap him in some way. If the 12 tribes would have conducted themselves as Yahweh said, according to the laws from the beginning, there would have never been any such thing as divorce. But now remember, anybody can repent. You can repent and turn to Yahweh with your whole heart. In Titus 2:5, we're not going to go there right now, but it says that the word of Yahweh is blasphemed when a woman is not obedient to her husband. Remember? Blasphemy. Blasphemy. 1 Timothy 1:19 through 20. Let's read that real quick. 1 Timothy 1:19 through 20. You can see where, at some point in time, some people that had turned from Yahweh and were no longer even trying to keep the laws, well, even Shaul said, what am I going to do here? In 19, keeping the faith with a clear conscience, which some have rejected and have shipwrecked to their faith, of whom are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have delivered to Satan, in order that they may be taught not to blaspheme. So, according to counsel, I'm not telling you to do anything, but according to counsel, if someone is trying to drag you down, someone trying to entice you to sin, like Solomon's wives did to him, for instance, well, what are you going to do? Go ahead and sin with him? No. Get counsel on it, please. I'd like to show you what this divorce is not an option for believers, and this is what it leads to. Families torn apart, sadness. You've got people, the children wondering, is it my fault? Gay marriage. That's what they do. They look so happy, don't they? There's more here, but it culminates into this. Elton John with his husband and their new baby. Don't they look happy? That's what divorce brings upon the earth. That's why Yahweh hates divorce and Satan loves divorce. So, we've just reviewed a few facts of divorce, and you can review some for yourself in this book if you haven't read it yet, Divorce, the Shocking Facts. It is synonymous with devil worship, divorce, devil worship, divorce, devil worship, same thing. So, and in Psalms, we're just about ready to go to Psalms here. I just want to let you know that the Scripture shows just how strong the influence of a wife or a husband can be when someone is not on guard, just like Solomon was not on guard, and they pulled him away and enticed him to sin. If you'll turn to Psalms 19, 1 through 6 on page 441, we're going to see how we can get away from this, how we can remain in the house of Yahweh forever. Page 441. Psalms 19:1. Heaven's messengers proclaim the glory of Yahweh. verse 4, it says, their witness goes out through all the earth and their story to the end of the world. In them he has set up a light or a house for his light. His going forth is from the end of the heavens, and his feast circuit to their ends, and no one is hidden from his judgment. The laws of Yahweh are perfect, converting the whole person. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making the simple ones wise. So, when it comes to light, turn over to Psalms 43:3. That is on page 450. We want to remain in the light. Oh, send out your light and your truth. Let them lead us, O Yahweh, and bring us to your holy hill and to your tabernacle, your house. And you might have to write some of these down. Isaiah 49:3 says, and he said to me, you are my servant, O Yisrayl, through whom I will be glorified. The light of Yahweh, that light comes through Yisrayl. Praise Yahweh. In Matthew 5:14-16, just write it down if you will. You are a light of the world. Let your light so shine before men so they may see your righteous works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Yachanan 14:9-11, if you'll write this down. Yachanan 14:9-11, Yeshua said to them, have I been with you so long and yet you have not known me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father, so how can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am the Father and the Father is in me? The words I speak to you, the law and the prophets, I did not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me, he does the works. Believe in me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or else believe me for the sake of these very works. And in being a light to the Gentiles, Acts 13:47, for Yahweh has so commanded us, saying, I have sent you to be a light to the Gentiles, that you should be for salvation to the ends of the earth. And of course, you know what the ends of the earth are. And Yahweh's salvation is here and it's before us. This light is before us. In fact, in Going On to Perfection, the second book of Yisrayl, Pastor talks about this quite a bit on page 307 and 308. He talks about making his face to shine upon you. What is Yahweh's face? It's his laws, statutes, and judgments. That's what we see in him. And that's Yahweh's face. When we look at Yahweh, the word face means character. And remember, you're the light of the world. If you are living the laws, this character that is upon him is upon you. And may Yahweh see fit to make his character shine forward from you. We will see him face to face. We will see him like we're not seeing him right now. But the same character that he has, may it be yours also. In 1 Yachanan 3:1, chapters 3 and 4, it's speaking of the face of Yahweh being upon us or the face of Satan being upon us. It's one or the other. Well, the face of Yahweh is with us today. The light of Yahweh is with us today. And you're about to witness it for your own, right before your very eyes. Amen?
Yeshua said, he who has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I speak to you, I did not speak on my own. But the Father who dwells in me, he does the works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or else believe me for the sake of these very works. You are my servant, O Yisrayl, through whom I will be glorified.
Remember the cloud Pastor told us about recently.
Now, what I want you to do, of course, is believe the Scriptures where he tells you that this work is not going to stop. He tells you you have certain protection. And he shows you by keeping his feast, that's part of that protection of what is going to take place from what is going to take place here in these last days. Now, so where do you stand? It's up to you to believe it and then stand firm. Endure. Endure in the house of Yahweh, keeping Yahweh's peace, the shadow of protection from things to come. Is there anyone here that don't understand that? Apparently every one of you do. So now you've witnessed to Yahweh that you do understand it. Now, in the same line, we need Yahweh's protection, that's for sure. We have been working towards this for years and trying to come out of this world. It's not an easy thing to come out of the world. And when people read that scripture, they think, that they've already come out. But there's coming a time when we've got to, and we're making it, Yahweh is making it possible, and we're making efforts as fast as we can to do this very thing. Touch not the unclean thing. Coming out of the world is one thing. Touching not the unclean thing is another thing. Now get this in your mind. It's a law. It's as much of a law as whatever law you favor and want to go around preaching about. Come out of this world, touch not the unclean thing. Now, if it wasn't possible to do so, they wouldn't tell us to do it. Brethren, think of it. One day, very soon, we're going to have everything that Yahweh shows here. And we're going to have the world at peace. Yahweh says they'll be totally at peace. They'll be not learning war anymore. This is what comes from Yahweh's Peaceful Solution Character Education program that's going before the world. Praise Yahweh. We're all going to be there, I hope. I pray that everybody will take this seriously, every word of it seriously. If you don't, you probably won't make it, but if you do, you're going to be with me forever. Yahweh bless you. Oh, one more thing. I told you, I am Yahweh to you. Now your duty is to be Yahweh to me. And if you don't do it, I'll lose you. May Yahweh bless you. And I'll turn the services back to the next speaker. Praise Yahweh.
If you turn to Yahweh with all your heart and not hold back, you will see Yahweh face to face. That's how His house sees Him today, face to face. So you will see the face of Yahweh. And if you all please stand, it's my honor and privilege to turn this over to the great Kohan, Sophania Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. We have several videos on the news this morning, and one of them, the first one is about Syria, and it shows Hillary Clinton, and she's meeting in Tunisia with 70 nations who are trying to find a way to stop Assad. That's how the news media classifies it. And if you notice, this news media is going to show babies, actual dead babies, and children that have been shot by supposedly the Syrian army. They're not really sure. But you never see this in news reports. They've got dead babies in all these wars. The United States kills babies all the time. So this shows they're really up to something, and they want the public on their side for what they're about to do. You know, just pay attention to how often they show dead babies. This means they're really after the person they're going after. They have full intentions on taking over Syria. But they're putting in place a traditional, transitional government, they call it. And so they're setting up a government already so that when they kill Assad or when they take him out some other way, they'll have the president already there to put into place. And Hillary is all for this. And if you think of Hillary Clinton in the world, you might think of her as a completely irreligious individual, but she's heavily working for the Catholic Church, as you'll see in this video, because they're going to put into place a man named Burhan Gileon. And this will just go by so quick you almost wouldn't even notice these names. I watched this video several times and I started picking up that they were actually giving people's names. But his name is Burhan Gileon, and he's a professor of political sociology at the Sorbonne University in Paris. And this is an extreme stronghold of Catholic conservative attitudes. In fact, I think they were trying to wipe out the Protestants in France, and the French government at one point had to take the university over because they were causing so much trouble. So they're going to put this Catholic professor in charge of Syria, and just watch how for this Hillary Clinton is. And then they're going to go into why the Syrian rebels need weapons, and just watch the sad face on this woman, this reporter, as she describes the weapons that the rebels have. And you would almost think she's describing some articles that are available at a country boutique, because she calls them, she says they have a modest selection of light weapons, and they have some crudely fashioned homemade bombs. You know, it's like something you can see on the internet. I think I'll take 5 crudely fashioned homemade bombs and maybe a light selection of light weapons. In fact, Scott Pelley has to at one point interrupt her and say, "You're talking about AK-47s, aren't you?" And it's like she goes, "Well, yeah." But this is her trying to make it look like, you know, these rebels, they practically only have toy guns. You know, they're totally harmless. So it shows the heavy bias of this media, and they are heavily promoting the takeover of Syria, and it's going to occur. They're going to destroy Syria. But then we talk about the Afghan protests in the Quran, and then the economy with 46 million people on food stamps, which is up from 26 million in 2007. You can see this is, to use their own words, unsustainable. So let's play the video.
Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Katan, several interesting events in the news this week, mainly with Syria. In fact, the U.S. rhetoric against the Syrian government rose to a threatening level this week after the slaying of 2 families took place near the town of Hama. The pictures of dead children, including several infants, have been posted all over the news. The rebels blame the Syrian army for the killings, but news sources have been unable to verify this information because they have been banned from the area.
President Obama had this to say about the incident. It is absolutely imperative for the international community to rally and send a clear message to President Assad that it is time for a transition. It is time for that regime to move on, and it is time to stop the killing of Syrian citizens by their own government.
Now, Secretary of State took a similar message with her to a remarkable meeting of 70 countries that got together in Tunisia to find a way to stop Assad. Secretary of State Clinton warned both Assad and his arms suppliers, including Russia, that the death and suffering of innocent people has to end now.
Clinton went on to say if the Assad regime refuses to allow this life-saving aid to reach people in need, it will have even more blood on his hands. And so too will those nations that continue to protect and arm the regime.
The secretary also said that Russia and China shared the blame for the violence by blocking a UN resolution that would have condemned Assad. Clinton said, "It is just despicable." And I ask, whose side are they on? They are clearly not on the side of the Syrian people.
On the question of what happens if Assad refuses to budge, the Saudis were blunt. Asked if the rebels should be supplied with arms, Saudi Foreign Minister Saud al-Faisal said, "Yes, I think it's an excellent idea." When asked why, he said, "Because they have to protect themselves."
Now, the conference in Tunis was staged as a global show of outrage. There were new pledges of financial sanctions against the Syrian regime and a show of who might replace Bashar al-Assad. In what amounted to an international debut, the exile group Syria National Congress was invited to form a transitional government for the day Assad leaves.
CBS News met with President of the SNC, Boran Galioun, who in his normal life is a professor of politics at the Sorbonne University in Paris. Now, this is a Catholic university there. CBS reporter Wyatt Andrews asked, "Are you potentially the next president of Syria?" Galioun responded, "I am the first person to put themselves on the line representing the Syrian revolution until the regime falls."
Now, with many allied against him, the conference ended on a demand that Assad allow in emergency food and medicine in the area immediately.
Now, the rebels in Syria, they are up against a well-trained, well-armed military. The Syrian elite forces are led by the dictator's brother. CBS News' Clarissa Ward has been with the rebels twice recently, once in December and another time 2 weeks ago inside Syria. Clarissa reported for CBS on what the rebels have to fight back with.
She reported that the group, which calls itself the Syrian Liberation Army, had a very modest selection of light weaponry, Kalashnikovs, rocket-propelled grenades, and some very crudely fashioned homemade bombs, but are desperate for more weapons.
Their only funding comes from the Syrian diaspora, but because the supply is so limited and the demand is so high, the price of weapons has gone through the roof. They said a Kalashnikov, or an AK-47, which is the standard machine gun that is prevalent in that area, is about $2,500. Now, that's roughly 5 times the world average.
She went on to report that there are several ways the arms are getting into Syria. Some weapons are being confiscated from attacks on the Syrian army, and they're being bought on the black market inside Syria itself. Others are being smuggled in from the bordering countries.
Lastly, still on the topic of Syria, we also noticed this week is the anniversary of the Assad dictatorship. The current president's father took over Syria 41 years ago.
More turmoil in Afghanistan, as several copies of Islam's holiest book, the Quran, were burned on a U.S. military base. A spokesman for the International Command admitted that it was a mistake, but that didn't stop several mobs of Afghans from protesting the act committed by these allied forces.
This incident is being labeled, of course, as a mistake, but the sight of a charred copy of Islam's holiest book is considered a terrible insult, according to a spokesman for the International Command. So, just what led up to these recent protests, you might ask?
Well, the Quran and other religious materials were confiscated from the library at the American-run prison at Bagram Air Base because prisoners were allegedly using the materials to pass notes to each other.
Then, according to CBS News, in an act of carelessness or stupidity, the materials along with the Qurans were treated like ordinary trash and sent to a burn pit. Several Afghan workers quickly stopped the burning and were able to retrieve one of the singed Qurans, setting off protests which quickly spread to other parts of the country.
Now, in Kabul, firemen and guards, they used water hoses and rubber bullets to beat back a mob outside NATO headquarters. In Jalalabad, crowds chanted "Death to America," this despite an immediate and public apology run on Afghan television by the top U.S. commander, General John Allen.
General Allen said in his public apology, "It was a mistake. It was an error. The moment we found out about it, we immediately stopped and intervened." He also ordered an investigation to be made public as soon as possible in an effort to put an end to the violence.
Now we go to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who is reporting on the increasing number of Americans on food stamps. Larry, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Jeff. Despite slight gains in the housing market, which some people are regarding as a positive indicator with respect to the economy, 12 million American citizens are currently unemployed, and the bulk of those citizens now find themselves in need of government assistance just to make ends meet. One such person, Mr. John Manton, a college graduate and unemployed legal career, interviewed for CBS News, never dreamed that at 64 years old, he'd have an empty freezer, be dependent on food stamps, and have to skip meals just to scrape by. Mr. Manton, who represents a growing number of people who are falling out of the so-called middle class and into poverty, spoke to CBS in tears as he communicated fears and concerns ranging from the possibility of losing his childhood home to the increase in the retirement age and whether or not political incompetence and callousness might soon raise the age for Medicare as well. Where is it all going to end, he asked. As heart-wrenching as Mr. Manton's story may be, it is neither singular nor uncommon and is indicative of a tumultuous system which has generated an increase of over 20 million Americans just since the recession of 2007 who now require government assistance just to eat. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Thank you for that report there, Larry. From wars throughout the Middle East to the economy being affected throughout the entire world, continue to stay tuned as we watch Yisrayl Hawkins explain these Bible prophecies that were actually foretold thousands of years ago. For YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thanks for joining us.
Everyone, please stand. The greatest teacher in the world, the great Kohan Yisrayl Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. That I know that's that Okie lamb that's got y'all turned on like this. That Okie lamb, you might not know it, but it was marinated with rosemary, basil, oregano, and tomato sauce. If you can get those four tastes in your mouth right now, your tongue's going to be watery. Then it was grilled, the Syrian, the flavor, and then it was slow cooked overnight. Wow. Think of that now for the feast, because the feast is going to top this. Feast of Passover. 6 weeks, 5 weeks, isn't it? Yeah, 5 weeks. Feast, one of the things we're going to have, believe it or not, is cream cheese cake. Cream cheese cake. Cheesecake. Man, it's wonderful. Now, I'm already wanting it, see? The signs in the clouds, I thought that was great the way they put it together. The artists were not that great of artists, but but bless their hearts, they did their best, and now the one thing they didn't tell me until last, but they got it in there anyway, was the light coming through the mouth and the eyes of that cloud image of the face. The signs in the clouds are from Yahshua. That's what he said, from Yahshua, from heaven. I'd like for everyone to pray for health. For everyone in the sanctuary, pray for their health. Everyone. Everyone pray, and pray for everybody else's health. that you might be able to witness all the prophecies being fulfilled. All of them. Tell Yahweh you don't want to miss a one of them. Now, if you turn over to Matthew 26, I mentioned the Passover and Yahshua's memorial, and of course there's another memorial that takes place with this, and that's the woman. The woman. Is everybody listening now? You priestly, you young adults? Are you listening? Have you got her name? You do. Praise Yahweh. That is wonderful. Well, don't say it, because I don't want to give it away. Wow, this is great. Anybody over here got it? I'll turn this way so they can't hear me over here. Nobody's got it over here? Anybody raise your hand if you got it? Oh, you do? Okay. Praise Yahweh. I'm having a hard time believing it, but this is great if you do. This is marvelous. I'm not going to say it till Passover, but it's a wonderful name, and I'll give you some hints now and see if you really got the right one. The prophecy, you have to go there to get it. But the prophecies say that the donkeys are going to be crying this out. Now that's what the actual prophecy says of this. So if you got it, then you have that one. It means exactly that. If you do, keep it to yourself, but till Passover. I want to make everyone study for this one. I want you seeking and praying that Yahweh will give you wisdom, like Solomon prayed. You know, he didn't pray for silver or gold, but he got more than he can handle. And of course, he prayed for wisdom and knowledge, and Yahweh, that greatly pleased Yahweh. Last week we spoke of cleansing, of course, and spoke of guarding Yahweh's way, and I spoke of the cleansing inwardly and outwardly, and I said last week that was going to be all, and this one is definitely it, maybe, on whey, but apparently whey is a great cleanser for inside and out, uses for whey and skin care and also in hair. The Hebrews, I guess, that was out working in places, they might have been the ones that carried the pots, the manure, the waste from human beings to a place outside the camp and burying it. But Yahweh made them shave their hair off. And, of course, it was to get rid of the filth, of course, and then cleanse themselves. And great stress is put on this. He said to cleanse yourselves inside and out, and then guard the gates. And, of course, this was not only to guard against enemies, but against filth being brought in or uncleanness being brought in. The uncleanness from man can build up if it's not taken care of properly, and you don't need 100 gallons of water to do it. You can actually do it with 2 cups. But it says, learn the incredible, simple uses for whey, for creating a healthy skin now. And a healthy skin means one that will fight off the things that are coming at you daily, and even more so in these last days, because you have the microorganisms in whey that actually, if you bathe with it. You could put a little bit in your 2 cups of water and bathe with it, and you have a great protection there for your skin. Or if you're going to take an ablution, they recommend that you put 2 cups for creating healthy skin and soft, shiny hair. Whey is natural protein and vitamin rich, and is one of the best things you can give your skin and hair. Whey is the liquid that is produced whenever milk is curdled, either through the addition of an acid like vinegar or lemon. We used to make goat cheese. I did. Used to make goat cheese with vinegar. I never tried lemon, but I know that's the way I made the goat cheese for a while. You never would eat it, I noticed, but anyway, that's the way I made it. I like it made with the culture. The culture is made. It's Yahweh makes that Himself, and of course we just feed the culture and breed it and feed it and let it multiply, and then use it in the cheese, in the milk, to curdle the milk. But you can also do it with vinegar, lemon juice, or through bacterial fermentation, which is what we use. As such, whey is generally regarded as a byproduct of the cheese-making process. Whey generated from acidification is known as acid whey or sour whey, while they generate from rennet cheese is known as sweet whey. The uses for whey in skin and hair care range from the internal, get that, internal, to the external. And that's what Yeshua said, cleanse the inside of the cup. So you can see this is actually showing what it does. Liquid goat whey contains protein, so does cow, vitamins and minerals. When taken internally, whey protein is rapidly assimilated by the body, and whey protein supplements are often used by athletes before workouts to help build muscle mass. That same whey protein that builds muscle mass is also needed to give your great skin, hair, and nails. So the first of the uses of whey to enhance your skin and hair is to drink it to provide your body with the complete protein building blocks it needs to rejuvenate rejuvenate the protein-rich skin and hair and nails. And when chilled is especially quite refreshing, but if you'd rather mix it with fruit juice or whip it up in the blender with some fresh fruit and ice as a smoothie, you can do that also. I don't know what would be wrong with just drinking it, but you can do it. You can use it in many ways: soups, ice cream, whatever. Makes great yogurt too. You can also use whey instead of water in recipes. Use whey for cooking pasta or making soups. When whey is used for making, I could eat some pasta if I knew that was made with whey. Or making soups. When whey is used for making bread, it gives it a wonderful brown crust and rich aroma. Smells, you got the yeast smell coming from it when you use the whey. With a little time, you'll find lots of other ways to add this protein powerhouse to your everyday diet. Just start thinking, why water when you could think whey? Great. Now, the whey for the hair, you can lose your hair pretty quickly if you don't keep it fed and nourished, and it's hard to get back once it leaves. But whey is excellent for hair care. It nourishes, strengthens, and softens hair. You'll probably find that after using whey on your hair, it's altogether healthier and shinier looking. And because it's slightly acidic, whey helps improve the health of your scalp, where your hair gets its nourishment. There, inside, grows, it fertilizes your hair. There are several varieties, verifications of use of whey on your hair. If your hair is not extremely dirty or oily, you can use whey in place of a shampoo to cleanse your hair. Just rub in thoroughly and rinse with cool or lukewarm water. If your hair needs a thorough cleansing, shampoo first and follow with a whey rinse. Leave on the hair for 5 to 15 minutes and then gently rinse with water. Want some serious conditioning? Wet, clean hair thoroughly with the whey. Brushing with brush with stalling brush to distribute evenly, and then let dry naturally. Rinse with warm water, dry and style. You're really going to love how soft and silky your whey conditioned hair is, men. Now, for one of my favorites, they say, hair care uses for whey. If you use styling gel or mosses on your hair, try using whey instead. Just spray or comb whey through your wet hair and style as usual. The whey adds great texture, body to hair, and is especially useful for fine or limp hair because it doesn't weigh it down like many of the products on the market. Just be sure to keep separating the hair as you dry or the hair will tend to clump together just like gel or mosses would do. Whey is the best heat and humidity resistant hairstyle product I've ever used. Even in our record-breaking heat index of over 110 degrees, the whey held my hair without collapsing. And, of course, you're getting the benefits of all the protein for your hair, too. Whey for the skin. Whey can be used on the skin as an all-in-one gentle cleanser, toner, and moisturizer. In fact, several commercial skin products incorporate whey because of its benefits. Whey is gently and slightly antimicrobial. Personal testimonies have stated that whey helps the acne. Additionally, it was shown in a cosmetic pre-development research that whey helps lighten skin pigmentation such as age spots. The easiest use of whey for skin care is a whey bath. Simply add 1 to 2 cups of whey to a tub of fresh water. Soak 10 to 20 minutes. The acidity of the whey is great for restoring the pH level of the skin, and the whey proteins will help rejuvenate skin cells. Use the same approach for your face with whey. Dampen a cotton ball or pad with whey and smooth over the face. There was one more thing for the eyes, I noticed. For tired eyes, wet a tea bag with cold whey and place over closed eyes. In 5 to 10 minutes, you will feel completely refreshed. For any homemade care recipes that use water, use whey instead. And when using a dry clay mask, wet your face first with whey. Remember that, man. I think it's great. Anything that Yahweh made, I'm going to uphold and guard. Praise Yahweh. Remember to work on the name now. You can't, we're told to celebrate this memorial to this woman. Don't forget that. You can't celebrate a memorial just to a woman, you got to know the name. And so work on that, everyone. And if it doesn't mean what I told you, then you have the wrong name. It means the donkeys are going to cry this out. And we're going to cry this out Passover. Now, hopefully everybody will know it. If you don't know it, if you don't do your homework now, you're going to be... and the rest of us are going to be singing it. Or crying it out. The news articles now that you just saw and the seriousness of it. Now, there was one that I wanted in there, but we didn't get. Hopefully we'll have it for next week. But Russia was threatening. It was more like a threat than just advisory. That if the United States or Israel, maybe they said Israel, if Israel strikes Iran, there's going to be catastrophic consequences. And this was on Russia Today and also Press TV. And but we failed to. We had trouble getting it off of the stick, is what we had trouble with. These computers are. That 666 describes them fully. I think that's their number, 666. If you go to Revelations now, I want to show you, and keep this in mind, because Yahweh is leading the show. He's prophesied to us, to his house, that he is going to show us the things before they come to pass. And of course, our job is to warn the world of what they're bringing on themselves, the full extent of their actions. And he tells the action before they do it. And then the action takes place. He tells the consequences of that action before the prophecy is even fulfilled to do it. And of course, each time he's always sent a prophet to the people. He's still sending the prophet to the same one, to the house of Israel, as a warning to the 12 tribes that, of course, rebelled against Yahweh and have brought this profaneness to all the world. One of them being confusion, of course, and that deteriorates the mind. They're even finding out now it's causing brain tumors, brain cancers, and children are being born with it. Well, of course, that was what Yahweh said would do also. That was in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. As early as there, he predicts the nuclear wars, the diseases that will invade the body, and one of them being tumors. And now the scientists that didn't even know what they were, now they're finding out what they are. And of course, from that comes forth these wars and fighting. Now, Kofi Annan has been elected to be the spokesman for the UN in trying to bring about a peaceful solution. Believe that or not, that's what he said. He's going to bring a peaceful solution. Well, of course, he comes later and says, or they announce later, that this is going to be a political peaceful solution and not the real thing. But he actually used the words peaceful solution. I think he got that from our president, Barack Obama, who would like to bring the real peaceful solution to the world. Praise Yahweh. His hands are somewhat tied, as Yahweh shows in prophecy. It also actually shows Barack Obama in prophecy. It shows the quartet in prophecy. You want to turn over to Revelation 6. That's where we're going to look first. But he shows the quartet here in prophecy, and the peace being taken from the earth, the starvation coming on. If you saw this man crying a while ago because he can't pay his bills, Now, it's going to get a lot worse than this before it's over. The United States is going to remain strong military-wise. Now, that's what prophecy shows. It will remain strong military-wise and up until the last part of this takes place, but before the sun is darkened, that's going to be the devastating effects of the all-out nuclear war. Now, if you notice those news clips, they actually showed that what they're all looking at is the first strikes are going to be done by the winners. And what they're looking for is an excuse for a first strike. They don't want to strike first without an excuse, like they had with the 9/11 or the bombing of the Twin Towers in New York. They want an excuse to go after Afghanistan and say the rebels are here, we got to go there and get them. And meanwhile, we got to stop them from using the euro and make them use the petrodollar instead. Hurt not the oil in all of this. Remember this. Well, of course, that is what is shown here with the quartet and all the wars that we're facing here. But I want you to look now. Remember these great signs that Yahshua is giving us, which means he's very active in his house among his donkeys and his donkeys' colts today. Very active. Well, that's what the Scripture shows too. And if you look at chapter 6 and verse 1, we see there that Yahshua, now read it in your own Scriptures there, men, boys, read it in your own Scriptures. Revelation 6, you should have already had this now. Follow me with this. I want you to understand where I'm coming from here, where Yahweh, because Yahweh is speaking to you here. And Yahshua himself is opening this seal for you. If you can get that in your head, he's actually opening these seals for everyone to understand this, everyone in his house today can understand this. Now, yes, he's active. He lets you know. He put a cloud, a perfect cloud, over the homestead where the last day's work was dedicated that reached clear back here over the sanctuary. And then he put other clouds up there in a rectangular box and also a square box. The letter A in the square box, and then GE with a long tail reaching towards a rectangular box. And then it had 4 letters in it. Quickly, I don't know if I told you this or not, but remember that. Hold your place in Revelations and turn over to Yekishkia. I'll find it for you here in a moment. But I want you to see something here. Remember the square box and the rectangular box that was over the sanctuary here, and the 2 teachers saw this. Everyone remember that? Well, look at page in your Holy Scriptures. Look at page 662b. 662b. You see the square box? You see the rectangular box? That's what he put over his house. In a cloud. Try to write with clouds. Try to write with smoke. You know, the Indians used to they send smoke signals. Well, all they did was put a blanket over some fire with some green leaves on it, and they send up a puff of smoke. There wasn't any writing to it, but they learned right away how hard it was to write with smoke. But this man has the power to give us this sign. You see that A? And do you see what A stands for there? Most holy place. And you see the other, the B, the rectangular box, holy place sanctuary. That's where you're sitting right now. And he put that right over this sanctuary for everyone to see, written in the clouds, with a message inside that box. It's going to be on a banner. Along with this woman's name that we've got to honor on Yeshua's memorial, as a memorial to that woman. That woman. Who is that woman? Well, if you don't get it before then, you'll get it then, but work real hard on getting it. Well, here back in Revelations now, 6, well, we see here this lamb that tells you to celebrate his memorial. Yahweh commands you to. That's Yahweh's lamb, his Passover sacrificial lamb for us, that memorial for his death. We're going to be celebrating here in about 5 weeks, and I hope everyone is ready for it at that time. Be thinking of recipes too, and thinking about getting you a lot of whey to drink during the feast. Unalcoholic, by the way. Well, notice he said, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. The Lamb opened the seal. Well, who's he opening that seal for? He's opening the seal. Do you see that? Go back to Genesis 49. Genesis 49, and you'll see the answer right here in Genesis 49, where Yahweh shows what will take place in the last days. In the last days. That's hold your place in Revelations now. We're coming back. But in Genesis 49, verse 1, he says, Then Jacob called for his sons. Remember Jacob and Jacob's well? Remember the woman that was at his well and said, Jacob is our father? Remember that? That's the woman. That's the woman right there. Now, what was her name? Well, Jacob said, Jacob's well in Samaria, and the Samaritan woman, well, Jacob said, I'm going to show you what will take place in the last days under inspiration of Yahweh. And verse 11 said, tithering his donkeys. Remember, Yeshua came riding on a donkey, on 2 donkeys, in fact. 2 donkeys. Tithering his donkeys to the vine. He says, I'm the vine. Yeshua said he was the vine. He said that loud and clear, wrote it in black and white. And tithering his donkey's colts to the choice branch. So there he tells you, Yahweh does, he tells you who he's opening the seal for. Look at Zechariah here, Zechariah chapter 6, and chapter 6, don't forget the branch now, tithering his donkey's colts to the branch. Well, you are the donkey's colts. We're singing that now. A beautiful song that they've done on that. And by the way, we have it available for anyone who wants it on tape or whatever. In Zechariah 6 here, and he's verse 11 says, take the silver and gold and make crowns. Now, this silver and gold, of course, is the not what your ring is made out of, but it's the if you use what the apostle said, that in every house there's vessels of silver and gold. Meaning the donkey's colts in this time. Your vessels of silver and gold. Pottery and clay also. Speak to him and say, this is in verse 11, he says, take the silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the heads of Yeshua. Now, this is not Yeshua ben Nun that lived back in 1400 and is given in Numbers. That man was dead. It's speaking of another Yeshua. Yeshua, and the word they translated Yazadek means Yahweh, as even Strong's Concordance shows you that. It means Yahweh, the son of Yahweh, the high priest. There's only one. And Hebrews 10:21 says he's high priest over the house of Yahweh. Now remember, Revelation 6:1, he's opening a seal for a certain time period, in a certain time period, to reveal this to the donkey's colts of Genesis 49:11, because he says, behold the donkey's colts, behold the branch, Isaiah said. So here we see, he said, verse 12, speak to him and say, this is what Yahweh of hosts says, behold the man whose name is the branch. So he's speaking to Yeshua, the high priest, saying, behold the branch. Well, in Revelation 6, we see he's opening a seal for the branch. Behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh. And he will rule and do counseling and so forth. But if you go back to Daniel now, Daniel, and speaking of this same time period that Yahweh is showing Yeshua, who would reign as high priest. Yeshua wasn't reigning as high priest at that time, if you remember. In fact, he came as a humble servant who washed feet. But he's been lifted up now, and he's high priest over the house of Yahweh, opening a seal that forbids anyone to see. Forbids anyone. So he's opening it for the branch. Behold the branch. Behold the branch. And open the seals to show, to teach, and you and he together, as Zechariah said, will rule in that time period. That time period. Praise Yahweh. Now in Daniel 12, he says in verse 4, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Time of the end. So when he's opening this, it is the time of the end. There's a man called the branch in prophecy. That's all prophecies show you the details of that man's life right now in this time period. One of the great sinners of the world that Yahweh showed that he could convert, and he'd be totally overshadowed with the holiness of Yahweh himself that comes straight from heaven, the manna from heaven, and he'd be guided by his son who now reigns as high priest. Brethren, you can't get any higher than where you're sitting right now. You got Yahweh and the high priest Yeshua, the son of Yahweh, dealing directly with you, writing notes to you in the clouds, showing you his power, and telling you he's with you right now. Praise Yahweh. But the books are sealed till the time of the end. And then in verse 10, he says, many will be purified and made white at that time. Purified and made white and tried. But the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will have this understanding. Do you see that? No wicked. Well, wickedness, of course, is breaking the laws of Yahweh. Let's go back to Isaiah now again. Isaiah 11. We'll come back to Revelations here 6 in just a moment. But Isaiah 11, because remember, Yeshua is opening seals to let the branch C, and the branch, of course, is teaching the donkeys, colts, with the donkeys being the foundation, and the prophets being the foundation for the donkeys, colts in the last days. Did Yahweh call any sinless people here beside any sinless people? Y'all have sinned, right? All of you? Every one of you. I think I've sinned more than you have, and I'm very thankful that Yahweh forgave me, but you should be thankful yourself for this. If you remember the woman whose name I won't speak at this time, but will at Yeshua's memorial, if you remember the woman, they all said she was a great sinner. A great sinner, as if they weren't, you know. And I'm sure she was, because it was pointed out, and Yahweh wanted us to see that. And Yahweh also wanted us to see that when a person repents, his sins are put behind him. When he converts to Yahweh and His laws, his sins are blotted out by the blood of our high priest Yeshua that He sacrificed for us. And of course, we celebrate that this coming Passover. But here in Isaiah 11, he says, remember now, he's opening the seals for the branch. Well, you wouldn't know who it was unless you go to the prophecy. And the prophecies, of course, tell us who this person is, gives you hints starting in Genesis all the way through to Revelations, and tells you these are my witnesses in Zechariah and also in Revelation. There will come forth a rod out of the stem of Yeshua, and of course that was Yeshua, and a branch will grow out of his roots. That's you and me at this time. In fact, he says in Revelations 22, I am the root and offspring of David. So a branch will grow out of his roots that he left us. His roots, of course, is his apostles, his disciples, 12 disciples. That is a foundation for us. You can't understand all the Holy Scriptures without using this foundation from the apostles. Well, those who reject Yeshua reject the 12 disciples also, reject their teaching. That's where the Catholic Church stands at this time. This week they celebrated what they called Ash Wednesday. It's so sad, you know, that the fairy tales that go with this, you know, that, well, these were the ashes came from the palm branches. Somebody gathered them up and burned them. No doubt it was probably Circe cooking her a ham sandwich fed from the saints that they killed and fed to the pigs. But they gathered up the ashes, and of course, there's supposedly, you walk up to the priest and he sticks his finger in this ash water and makes the cross on your head, and no telling how much filth is coming from that rag. And some of them put it in their mouth. Well, who told them to do this? Not Yahweh. They didn't come from Yeshua's house. He said, don't come near me. I don't know where you came from. Certainly not from my house. Well, his house, the face of Yahweh, is shining on his house. That's on Yahweh's house. Well, we're seeing another face here that's shining on them, celebrating what they determined was a form of righteousness now, where they supposedly fast for, this fasting now means that they could do without pork on that day, and that's considered a fast. But you got to do without something, you know. Maybe you do without a cup of coffee or something one morning. That's considered a fast for the day. But 40 days of this so-called Lent, starting with Ash Wednesday, as they called it, missing the total story of this wonderful prophecy that has to do with the rejoicing with the palm branches that He's the one that brings this wonderful rejoicing, shows you how to get close to Yahweh and find joy in Yahweh. He shows you how. And in fact, He says, get your mind totally on this work and you'll find joy in Yahweh, being a servant to His people. And of course, that's where Yahweh gets His joy too, being a servant. And he was to mankind on the seventh day, and He is every Sabbath day. Yes, Yahweh is in full attendance here today, making sure that His will is taught and practiced in His house, and you're learning the things that really bring you joy, will bring you to the fullest joy. Service to others. There's no higher joy in the world than serving other people. And the more you can do it, the more joyous you are. I used to do this in churches when I was, praise Yahweh, used to do it in churches before, there's one that we found that was supposedly keeping the feast. And I would go there early of a morning to the sanctuary to feast time. And I would start setting up the chairs and getting ready for the people to come, because we would take the chairs down and sweep and sometimes mop the floors where stuff was spilled, and we'd clean the place up of a night before we closed the doors, and then of a morning then we'd leave the chairs put on racks of a night and then put them out in the morning. Well, I was always the first one there. I didn't have a key. They didn't trust me with a key, I guess, but I was the first one there and waiting on somebody that had a key. I didn't gripe. I was joyous about this. I was joyous that I had a job with Yahweh, More joyous now than ever. But praise Yahweh. But He tells you here, and then in verse 2, He says, the Spirit of Yahweh will be upon this branch. The Spirit of Yahweh will rest upon him. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding. Well, Yahshua is supplying that and giving it to us. Opening seals where I can see where these things that are coming. And of course, the way to joy, the way to keep the Sabbath. No, you don't keep the Sabbath by laying down on your can all day and saying, bring me something to eat. That's not keeping the Sabbath properly. Do it the way Yahweh did it. My Father works and I work. That's the way you do it. Not your own work, but Yahweh's work. Serving other people. It starts early morning here. It goes on late of the night here. I know, because they call me when they close that door. I insist on knowing that everything went well and everything's all right, and I can lay down and go to sleep now. And praise Yahweh. Well, yes, I watch over Yahweh's house. I think maybe this thing that the elders put together today, the priests put together today, I think maybe that's what that was showing. The light coming through my mouth and my eyes in that cloud. Now, they said this was actual. They saw this. And both of them saw it and drew me some pictures of it. But they said the light was coming through my mouth and through my eyes. That's the last thing they told me. They didn't tell me that at first. And I rejoiced when I heard this. I said, light? Yeah. This is the laws of Yahweh. And Yahshua is saying, you want light? You want the light? Come to Yahweh's house. It's coming from my servant, the branch, to my house. And of course, that's what Yahshua was showing. Now, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge, and the reverence of Yahweh. And it says the branch is going to have all of those things. Just a couple more scriptures here. Let's go back to Revelations 6, because we're in a time period. We're seeing that this is the time period of what we're seeing in the news right now. The nations are angry. Yes, they're passing out threats big time. And not just threats. This time it's nuclear threats, because they know that the first strike, the one that gives the first strike, and this time they're going to turn loose with everything they got. Now, all of this is being voiced from the angry nations. And of course, their minds are so confused. A peaceful solution to them would be a political move that would trick someone into signing a treaty that they don't intend to keep. And of course, coming out on top, as they say, this is a just war that we're about to wage. The Pope says, he calls it a just war. This is a just war. There's justification in bringing this war. Well, of course, he too is going to be destroyed in this. That is, the 7 hills of Rome are going to be burned, the Scripture shows. Come out from them, my people. You better get out of them. You better start running. You better get out from them and get to the house of Yahweh, where there's protection. And a great a great time to come here would be this coming feast, which is about 5.5 weeks from now. I'm speaking on the 25th of February right now, and about 5.5 weeks is the feast. You need to register for the feast. If you need a letter from us for invitation, we will send it to you. I'm talking to the men, the people overseas, the families overseas, anywhere in the world. I'm talking to any and all of you. This is the only place on earth that Yahweh shows there will be protection from all of these troubles that are coming. And brethren, praise Yahweh. And if you live with me to the end of this thing, you'll see all of these prophecies fulfilled, and that's what I want. I want to enter the kingdom with everyone here. We'll see Yahshua at that time, and we'll probably have a little wine at that time. You know, he's not drinking either. Yahshua is not drinking either. That's the reason I said, you know, I don't want to drink until I can drink with him. And that's what he said. I don't want to drink anymore till I can drink with them in the kingdom. Speaking of you and, of course, our foundation. Well, now here he's opening the seals. In verse 1, the Lamb, he opens the seal. What for? So they can see. So they can see what is coming. And lo and behold, the first thing he shows us is the quartet. The quartet for this time period. The quartet that was invented in my lifetime and brought to action full force, and power is given unto them, authority is given unto them to take peace from the earth. Not only that, to kill about 4/5, depopulate the earth. Depopulate the earth. That is the plans for our time period. Well, of course, the prophecies show this, but the news now is showing it big time. And we're staying up to date on it every week and going to try to keep everyone posted as to when this first strike is going to be, if we can get that close to it. But I'm sure it's going to be a surprise to most of the world, but it is coming, and it may be put off a little bit, and it may not. I wouldn't take a chance on it. I wouldn't go on a long journey where I could be away from the house of Yahweh for the Sabbath day. I can guarantee you that it might be one that you didn't want to miss when you decided to try to get back. But those that are here and living here, you praise Yahweh for it. Bless Him every day for it. It's the greatest honor in the world to be called by the greatest being in the world. And that's what you have now. This glory that is upon you right now, that all the nations are asking to take a witness of, be witness of. All the heavens are now witnessing you and knowing your every move and knowing whether or not you're upholding, tolerating, forgiving, all these things, that's what you've got to do. And you've got to be consistent in it. Remember that. Judge according to Yahweh's judgment. Serve as Yahshua served. Serve as Yahweh served before Yahshua did. But Yahshua was just doing what the Father showed him that he did do. And we're the only other ones that I know of, besides his disciples, that actually caught those prophecies that is prophesied of us, and the rest of the Sabbath, the rest of the Holy Sabbath would be wonderful. He says would be a wonderful thing, and for us in this time period, because why? Because the Savior showed us how to keep the Sabbath, but He showed no others. How come none of the others ever caught on to how to keep the Sabbath day holy? How to actually have a holy convocation with Yahweh Himself, and how to do it properly, where Yahweh would take joy with us and seeing us actually be servants to one another. You know, there's no wars where there's servants to one another. There's only wars where there's disagreement, hatred, vengeance, retaliation. That's where you find your wars. You don't find it where you're serving another nation. You don't find it where you're serving another individual. It's where they turn against Yahweh's laws. That's where you find the disagreements. Can two walk together unless they be agreed? No, they can't. In fact, Yahweh even tells you, you know, if you can't, let them go. There's no strings on you for it. Let them go. Let them go back to their God worship or whatever it is they're craving. It's not a great thing, but that's the way it stands today. And that's the way it stood in Moshe's day and in Nehemiah's day. Yes, they married God worshipers. They were sorry for it every minute. They had a Christian marriage that was so hateful and bitter that they couldn't stand it any longer. But they'd already made agreements with the lawyer before the lawyer. I sent, I don't know, you probably didn't hear this. You may have heard about it, but I sent Stephania, I said, you know, we need a lawyer that works cheap, you know, to fight some of these cases that's always coming up. I said, see if you can find us one that works cheap. So he had an appointment with one. He walked into the office and he said, what do you charge? And he said, I charge $75 for 3 questions. And he said, and Sophia said, isn't that awfully high? He said, no. What's your 3rd question? He said, well, what if I can't pay it? He said, my daughter's name's Sue. You didn't get that? I just make these up. It comes along, you know. That's an okie for you. May Yahweh bless you. I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you.